Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into something that, honestly, could change the way you read the entire Bible. You know, when we hear Old Testament and New Testament, we often think of them as two separate books. But what if it's really just one continuous story? The whole answer might just hinge on the real meaning of a single word.
Right? So this is the big question, isn't it? Was it a clean break? Did one agreement just end and a totally different one begin? Or is there something more going on, a single narrative that unfolds over time? The perspective we're digging into today suggests it's one story, and the key to unlocking it is hitting in what that word new really meant.
Okay, so where do we even begin? Well, we start by decoding that pivotal word, new. Our whole investigation really kicks off with how this word was first used by the prophet Jeremiah, because its original meaning, well, it might just change everything. All right, here it is. This is the verse from Jeremiah that really gets the ball rolling. Now, for a long, long time, when people read that word new, they thought, okay, out with the old, in with the brand new. But what if that's not what the original Hebrew was saying at all? So, the word in Hebrew is hadash, and this is fascinating. Its main meaning isn't brand spanking new, like you'd get a new phone to replace your old one. It's much more like renovating a classic house. You're not tearing it down, you're restoring it, making it fresh and new again. And this, right here, this really nails the difference. In English, we hear new, and we just automatically think replacement. But in the original Hebrew that Jeremiah was using, it's all about restoration. And believe me, that one little shift in understanding is the foundation for this entire interpretation of the covenant. Okay, so if the idea is that the covenant was renewed, not just tossed out and replaced, then we should be able to look at the scriptures and see a single consistent story, right? It should all connect. So let's do that. Let's trace that narrative arc. And when you lay it out like this, you really start to see a clear progression, don't you? First, the covenant gets established at Sinai. Then we get a promise of a future prophet. Then Jeremiah comes along and talks about the renewal of that same covenant. And then finally, the Last Supper, where it's all sealed. It's like watching 4 acts of the same play. But here's where it gets really specific, and it's all in the language. He didn't say, this is my blood of a new covenant. He says, of the covenant. Think about that. Not a new one, but the one. That tiny little word, the, suggests he's talking about the same singular covenant everyone listening already knew about. It was just being fulfilled in this incredibly profound new way. So if the covenant itself wasn't replaced and the laws weren't thrown out, what exactly did change? That's a fair question. And this next part gets to the absolute core of the argument, literally. The whole point is that the fundamental change wasn't in the law, but in where it was located. This visual pretty much says it all. You had the law written on stone tablets, something external you had to look at. But the whole promise from Jeremiah was that it would move. It would be written on our hearts, something internal that guides us from the inside out. The law didn't vanish. You could say it just moved house. And you want to see what this looks like in the real world? Here's a perfect example. He's not getting rid of the rule against adultery, not at all. He's taking it so much deeper. He's saying, let's go to the source. It's about dealing with the thought in the heart, not just stopping the external action. This is that prophecy from Jeremiah in action. So just to be super clear here, this move from just what you do to what's in your heart isn't about abolishing the law. The argument is that it's the ultimate fulfillment of why the law existed in the first place, to actually shape who we are on the inside, not just manage our behavior. Okay, I know what some of you might be thinking. This all sounds good, but what about the Apostle Paul? Doesn't he talk a lot about the law being over? And yeah, it can definitely sound that way. So let's jump right into that apparent contradiction. And guess what? It might come down to the meaning of, you guessed it, another single crucial word. This right here, Romans 10:4. This is probably the #1 verse people point to say, the law is done, finished, over. I mean, that word end seems pretty cut and dry, doesn't it? But just like with hadash, the original language gives us a whole other way to look at it. The Greek word Paul actually wrote is telos. Now, sure, telos can mean end as in termination, but its more common meaning, its primary sense, is goal or purpose or the intended result. Think about a marathon. The finish line is the telos. It's the goal of the race. It doesn't destroy the race, it completes it. And when you see telos as goal, it completely flips the meaning of what Paul is saying. It's no longer about the law hitting a dead end. Instead, it's about the law acting like a giant arrow, always pointing forward, always aiming at the Messiah as its ultimate purpose and fulfillment. It turns a stop sign into a destination marker.
And what's really powerful is that this interpretation suddenly makes the rest of what Paul says about the law make so much more sense. I mean, look at this. In the very same book, Romans, he says we establish the law, not nullify it. He calls the law holy, righteous, and good, and he says its righteous requirements are fulfilled in us. If you read telos as goal, all these pieces just click together perfectly.
All right, we've dug into some key words, we've traced the story. Let's pull all these threads together now and lay out the complete theory of the renewed covenant step by step. So, when you boil it all down, the whole argument rests on these three pillars. 1. That keyword new, chadash, really means renewed. 2. The renewal didn't get rid of the law, it just relocated it from stone tablets to the human heart. And 3. The Messiah isn't the law's termination point. He is its telos, its ultimate goal. And this final statement from the source just wraps it all up so well. It's not about a new law. It is this same covenant, just brought to its full potential. The Torah, the law, is not abolished. It is internalized. That's the whole idea in a nutshell. And all of this leaves us with one final, really big question to chew on. If a law's application moves from being about external rules to being all about your internal motivation, does its essential character change? Even if the words on the page are the same, is it still the same law? It's a question that gets to the very heart of what it means to live a life of faith.